Please note, everyone, that this podcast and the views of any persons expressed therein are not representative of any of the institutions they work in, or any of the institutions they are employed at. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Fonzo Perez, and welcome to SIKAPTalks, where we discuss the issues that matter most to the Filipino youth. In our education series, The Learning Curve, we explore various topics related to education and learning in the Philippines. In each episode, we delve into a specific topic and explore its impact on parents, teachers, students, and the education system as a whole. In our first episode, K Kabasa K12, we're going to focus on the K12 program, a curriculum adopted by the Philippines Department of Education in 2011 to align the Philippines' primary and secondary education systems with international standards and to provide students with a more comprehensive and holistic education. As policymakers debate the replacement of the K-12 system with K-10 plus 2, making the last 2 years of senior high school optional for those who may want a quicker route to employment or to college, taking a look at the objectives, learning outcomes, upsides, downsides, and job prospects for graduates under the current educational model is important, especially when policymakers are debating this change. By analyzing all of these, we can have a more informed discussion about the future of education in the Philippines and the steps needed to prepare students for success in the workforce and beyond. Our guest on this episode today is an educational professional with extensive experience teaching in the private sector and in handling elementary students. Joining me today is Mr. Jose Ramelle Javier, who, with over 15 years of experience as an educator within the LaSalle network of schools, he previously served as chair of the De La Salle Basic Education Commission and as my elementary school principal, and is now serving as director of the Office of Admissions at Salle Green Hills. Welcome, Mr. Ramel.
Yeah, pleased to be here, Fonso. Just to mention, this is the Office of the Administration, Office of the Director for Administration,
I'm
and
sorry.
not admissions. That's all right. That's all right.
All right. So first off, so we're going to be discussing the objectives of the K-12 system and the learning outcomes of that curriculum. So, what exactly are the objectives of the K-12 system, sir, and why exactly was it implemented in the first place?
I think the rallying point, recalling how the K to 12 system was popularized, the rallying point was really the um, the placement or the situation of the Philippines as against the number of years pertaining to basic education with other countries in Asia and the rest of the world. No, there were studies related to Bologna Accord and other educational pact or agreements, no, among countries, showing that the Philippines, prior to the implementation, was one among countries that have not stepped up to the leveraging number of basic education, and therefore to be able to step up to that expectations and to ensure that our graduates are able to comply and qualify for tertiary placements in other countries. This was one of the moves that the the then Secretary of Department of Education, under the leadership of then President, the late Aquino, no, um, undertook. The other critical aspect of the implementation of K to 12 was to ensure employability, because at the terminal year of junior high school and moving towards the senior high school cluster, we expect there is an expectation that specific students or cohorts of students who take the technical vocational track should be able to get employment, no, because
Mhm.
of the certification for technical vocational courses. For students who choose to take the academics and other related tracks, that is a pre-college orientation and therefore necessitated some form of a baccalaureate degree. So
Mhm.
essentially 2 points, no, to level off and to ensure that our educational system is at par with the rest of the world, and to likewise guarantee that our students of caliber in relation to employment status right after senior high school.
Right. Thank you. And how exactly, sir, is student progress in terms of both the vocational and the pre-college track measured? And like how exactly does the academic progress or the measurement of that academic progress differ from the previous system?
Well, I would say I don't have the data, and these are all anecdotal, but I'd
Mhm.
like to highlight that um, certain organizations and even educational institutions in the Philippines have pursued initiatives in crafting standardized tests that measure readiness of our senior high school graduates to tertiary school. So there is such a thing as CRT, no, the College Readiness Test.
Mhm.
Other graduates of senior high school that opted to take other tracks um, apparently got the chance to land into uh, services or other industries such as culinary arts, rendering technical services to prospective companies, and so on. Um, Other forms of student assessment will include um, their the levels of mastery of students with respect to entry and exit skills. So there have been a lot of initiatives undertaken by both learning institutions as well as external providers that served as basis for comparing results, whether or not the aspirations of the K-12 program with respect to the vision and mission of the school are were achieved, no, or were accomplished. So essentially, those were the yardsticks, and there were curricular frameworks made available for the schools to develop and to craft, no, and it did give particular institutions some leeway or flexibility in terms of customizing the curriculum, but without having to lose track of the framework that it offered.
Right. And in terms, Mr. Ramel, of extracurriculars geared towards both the pre-voc and the pre-college track, was there any emphasis on that at all on in the K-12 system? And were there any initiatives geared towards those extracurriculars?
One of the striking points that I would like to highlight is the preponderance or availability of activities that expose our students to hands-on undertakings. No, in particular for senior high school, there was this immersion program that gave our senior high school students the opportunity to practice the theories and the principles learned from the different disciplines in senior high school into an actual work setting. So this practically required or necessitated partnerships between learning institutions and industry partners such as automobile, hotel and restaurant operators, um, so that the measure by which the assimilation of ideas, key concepts, and principles, which are covered in theories and principles in the formal education setting, are now translated into its practical component
Mm-hmm.
and and specific measures were defined to figure out whether or not the students have in fact absorbed, learned, acquired the technology transfer that should in the first place happen from the rudiments of classroom delivery of instruction aspect to the real life situation, which is industry.
Right. So it's good then that there are internship opportunities and
Oh yes, 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 yes.
co-partnerships related
Yeah,
to both the pre-voc and the pre-college tracks. So for
yeah.
instance, let's say if I were a humanities graduate, or let's say I was heavily geared towards political science fields, I would probably be interning with industries close to or companies working within that field. Right, sir?
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it did work.
See, perfect. So also, I noticed that the K to 12 system also places, I think, a strong emphasis on critical thinking and knowledge skills and problem solving as well. So I'm wondering how exactly do school administrators and educators assess those skills, knowing that the traditional means of assessment would be the written pen and paper tests.
Yeah. Most schools ventured into what you call capstone project. So
Mm,
it pretty much is equated to some kind of a culminating activity where all the key lessons learned from the various disciplines are integrated, put together with an understanding that the outcome or the output of such project will be in relation to a critical problem that exists in the community, and
mm,
then utilizing the formula that are culled from the concepts and skills learned from various disciplines should offer new ideas, those that will bring about change and innovation and would um, offer some form of usability among individuals and peoples in society. So that is branded as a capstone project, and students got exposed to data generation,
mm.
parameters of data confidentiality, conducting focus group discussions, analysis of information gathered, and eventually coming up with recommendations and conclusions that will ultimately show or reveal a a kind of consonance with respect to the problem that the research intended to solve or to put some kind of solution to.
I see. So putting the theory into real world skills and into practice.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I liked, sir, that you mentioned something about responsibility, I think, and I think putting into practice, and I think just mixing that all together into active citizenship. Like I know that K to 12 also has an emphasis on active citizenship and civic responsibility. So other than, let's say, data focused efforts and research focus groups, how else would the K to 12 system say assess these parameters of civic responsibility and active citizenship in the school setting?
Well, for one, um, subjects like disaster risk management or business enterprise, entrepreneurial skills development, these are all um, exposures that um, propelled social responsibility among learners, no? Like business ethics. You do not only capitalize on the operational aspects of running a business, profitability, revenue, but most importantly, making sure that you plow in the essential values when you run a business or when you pursue transactions with different organizations. And that's precisely the reason when I mentioned about capstone project a while back,
Mm,
because that becomes an essential ingredient in the identification of problem right from the onset among students. And not only does it offer a pivotal solution to the acknowledged problem, but bringing in to a large extent, no, the scope of values and
Right.
ethics in conducting work and other related pursuits.
So like incorporating the Lasallian values taught,
I would say
right?
yes, very much, very much.
See. I'm sure also, sir, that you've encountered problems and challenges while implementing the K-12 system all those years ago. But aside from that, though, sir, what are some of the positives you would say of the K-12 system over the previous curriculum?
Easily, I'd speak about the decongestion of the curriculum. There was much focus, maybe, yeah, more mastery was brought into the picture, and the confidence level of our students were even strengthened. Levels of students were strengthened, um, and we see a lot of successful examinees from universities abroad,
Mhm.
and even the selection of colleges of their choice, I think, is an indicator that we have in fact prepared our students for tertiary school. And even although again these are all anecdotal, I may not have the data to cite or allude to, but these are, I would say, the primordial benefits of the implementation of the K to 12 system.
Right, which is that students within or graduates of the K-12 system actually became more competitive, not just locally, but also internationally, right?
True, that's so true.
Um, so based on all those positives that you said, Mr. Ramel, how do you think educators such as yourself, both in the private and public sectors, how do you think they could build on those best practices and positives of the curriculum and implement it in their respective school systems?
I think I should laud the efforts of several organizations, both private and public, where for on best practices in the K to 12 implementation. From the very start, from the onset, there have always been conferences related to appropriate interventions
Mm,
in all aspects of school governance. Operations wise, we took a look at academic support services, not only curriculum design. There was also a close attention given to adoption of an appropriate pedagogy, then assessments, student and teacher development, and um, policies that should appropriately be adopted in support of the K to 12 program.
mm,
So there, I would say that there was more than enough um, channel or medium for practitioners to share experiences and to learn from each other.
I see. So just building on all those accumulated learnings throughout the years of the implementation, just
Yeah,
overall the whole curriculum better.
yeah.
See. And I hate to dwell on negativity and the downsides here, Mr. Amel, but um, you might answer no to this question as well. But would you say there are any downsides or negatives to the K to 12 curriculum compared to the previous system? And were there aspects of the previous system you liked better than the current one?
Mhm. Well, uh, of course, this is the perspective of most parents. Financial was the one that top, maybe the list of those that are maybe, I don't want to call it a drawback or a negative feature, but something that perhaps added on um, to the years of well spending, especially from the end of the parents. But this was well compensated by the preparation, no, and the readiness of the students for tertiary college life and even the world of work. Again, it's compensated, but because we've seen the results of how children have been able to imbibe and strengthen their skills and competencies in the different areas. And then, well, yes, the readiness level, I would say, has been truly escalated.
I see. So all positives on the K to
I would say at the start there were obviously hiccups because you're doing change management, but eventually, because everyone saw the sincerity of the objective and the rationale, then the um, acceptance outweighed the resistance from particular sectors.
right. And overall the drive to just embrace change and become more competitive, correct?
Exactly.
Right. And with regard to the programs as well, Mr. Ramel, that you mentioned earlier, could you highlight probably um, a successful example of let's say these internship opportunities with regard to job training skills and training, like giving the necessary skills for employability and workforce eligibility for students?
Well, I know of schools that have engaged in some form of a memorandum of agreement with industry partners,
Mhm.
and set criteria were crafted, job functions, specific expectations, pre, during, and post orientation sessions given to the trainees and interns, and end of engagement arrangements proved that these were all scaled up to be successful. We have been receiving remarkable feedback from industry partners that the students that have been brought to the internship programs are kind of well equipped. They uh, they possess the necessary communication facility. Their business ethics are lauded, and even the way they compose themselves in during meetings,
Right.
formal and informal transactions, and engagements with colleagues in the workplace were all remarkably noted to be favorable from among our partners.
Right. Because of how like job ready the K to 12 curriculum has prepped them for employability in their industries. See. And with regard to employability and soft skills, sir, such as let's say teamwork, leadership, and communication, which I believe wouldn't be necessarily testable skills on pen and paper, or even the national achievement tests. How exactly were you able to prep students on this? And how were students able to improve? Like what benchmark would they know, and like how would they improve from that benchmark, in your opinion?
From pedagogy itself, we already see some a huge amount of concretization of lifelong learning skills among students, collaboration, being able to assert a point and to negotiate. These are some of the skills that are being promoted by 21st century education, 21st century learning, which have been capitalized on as we develop learning pedagogy, teaching learning process, no, and delivery of instruction, and quite successfully our students have adapted to that situation, such that when they appeared before the scenarios in real workspaces, they have kind of easily adapted to meeting all sorts of challenges, although the responses came in different levels and orientations. But at the end of the day, they kind of adopted and have um, embraced the structure and replicated it in the world of work that they have slowly been exposed to. So readiness is there. The kinds of activities that they get involved with already presuppose levels of engagement, interaction, working in pairs, in groups, and coming to terms with having to negotiate um, an idea which may not necessarily be accepted with the other members, but at the end of the day, resort to having a collective decision that is deemed to support the plea for common good.
Right, right. And I really like that point, Sir Ramel, that you made about 21st century industries. That's especially right now with the changing face of technology. And I'm sure you've heard of ChatGPT and maybe how students probably use it for homework, or how let's say white collar workers use it to automate some of their tasks. And with AI trying to eat some of our jobs away, how would you think the K to 12 tries to help students maintain an edge over these new technologies and make them essentially more attractive than these technologies to employers?
I think this is where we can balance off ethics and innovation in the workspaces, in the real world of work, while we advocate plunging into the world of discovering the unknown and to provide more growth opportunities in a lot of aspects of uh, life settings. But at the end of the day, very important that we equip our learners with a heart that should make them understand the steerings of humanity, the human aspect of life,
Mm.
and more than the dictates of technology, to bring really that dimension, so that compassion, commitment, critical care for others, and being able to show responsiveness to other people's welfare should come in the way rather than usurp them from doing something that will be to the detriment of the success of others.
Right. So instead of putting others down, you try to help students help others achieve the best they can, right? And just instilling compassion, values from the heart, which are essentially qualities that make them better than machines.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Sir Amel, for those insightful answers and insights regarding the state of Philippine education and the K to 12 system. So we have some questions from um, attendees and members of SIKAP. So first off, I'll be starting from Mr. Joshua Verzo, and he is asking, what is your opinion about the K-12 system in general? I know it's a bit open-ended, sir, but you could answer it however you like.
Yeah. I mm, mm, I may not have to be specific anymore, but I would say that we have experienced the benefits of the implementation of the K to 12 program. At the start, there were hiccups, but we were able to surpass them and realize at the end of the day that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks in the process.
Right. And the next question here also is from Mr. Alex Ampaya, and he is asking, how can we make our classrooms or learning environment more inclusive with respect to the K to 12 system?
Um, well, inclusivity is a framework, and there are specific principles and parameters that schools may utilize to be able to ensure inclusivity exists and is embraced by the schools. No, you will note that uh, certain institutions have shifted from being exclusive schools to co-educational. With respect to stringent criteria for admissions, they have relaxed this a bit to guarantee that all forms of learners who may be interested to avail of the services of the institution are yielded to
Mm.
uh, for so long as they are able to demonstrate that commitment and well, step up to the expectations the moment they are expected in these specific learning institutions. No? Even the um, um, openness to um, accede to form different forms of learning modalities have been explored already by learning institutions, and uh, well, those that uh, are are assessed to possess uh, learning learning differences or differentiations are also being catered to. But of course, this should these all these require specific expertise from the end of teachers, personnel, and even availability of specialized facilities that will enhance the kind of environment that will promote such levels of inclusivity.
Right. So, in essence, ensuring equal access for all.
Yeah.
All right. And their next question is also from Mr. Dwayne Biscotcho, and he is asking if you think the education sector has fully adopted or implemented the K to 12 curriculum at this point.
I would say that the full implementation is already in place and it's in order. And um, this one I can cite pretty well because I have come to know and have read already the contents of Depth Ed 2030. It makes an assertion about the roadmap of Philippine education in the next decade, and there are traces in said report how the K to 12 program has been lauded and the areas that will have to be looked into in terms of improvement.
See,
So I think we're getting there because the um, practitioners in both private and public sectors are have kept in their radar the important items or concerns that need to be given that much attention.
I see. All right. And the next question is from Miss Christine Mendiola, and she asked, why do we need 2 more years of schooling with college level classes and coursework when the colleges do not, in fact, credit the coursework we've taken during senior high school? So I think her question is based on her own experience. I think I
Yeah.
which might say is probably not representative of everyone who underwent the K to 12 system. But how would you respond to her query, Mr. Ramel?
Uh, Foremost, the K to 12 program really intended to add 2 layers of 2 years for basic education because of the reasons that I've cited, based on the questions that you have lodged early part of this conference or this forum. Um, and it cannot be it can only be fully credited as a precursor to tertiary education. So in other words, when you earn a senior high school diploma, you may only be able to proceed to tertiary work if and when the courses that you have taken, whichever track that is, led you to the kind of degree that you had intended to take. So
Mm.
essentially, even for college readiness, there are specific um, items or indicators or measures that help a child or a senior high school graduate determine onto which discipline he may be best fielded in when he go to college.
Mm. So it's mostly a matter of finding like the best fit for the student educationally.
Oh yes, oh yes, yeah.
And to wrap up our questions from our members and attendees, so from Miss Shekinah De Castro, so what is the main purpose of K-12? And I think, sir, this is just probably going back to the first points we raised in this forum.
Yeah, just to highlight again, um, readiness of our students for tertiary work and eventually world of work for those who are considering getting employed at the end of the terminal year of senior high school should they take the technical vocational track.
Right. Well, thank you to all our attendees and members who fielded their questions for this interview. However, Mr. Ramel, is there and before we end this forum, is there any relevant literature, books or novels you would recommend for any of the people viewing this forum?
I think one of the best references to reckon with is um, the BEPD, the Basic Education Program Development 2030. That's the roadmap of the current leadership of the Department of Education. They may also cite related studies on the studies, no? And I refer to formal research, both quantitative and qualitative relative to the K-12 implementation.
Right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Amel, for accepting our invite to be a speaker on this forum, and for your insight on K-12 education and how putting theories into practice and molding students into employable workers and helping them achieve the very best they can in all the industries they'd like to enter in the future. Um, to all our viewers, stay tuned for our next podcast on diversity and education here at the Learning Curve at SIKAPTalks. Thank you.